man in the world in 1979. He was the most important ally of the United States of America and the West, and he prolonged apartheid. I remember the one country that paid a high price for the liberation of Southern Africa is Zambia, where it allowed bases for all the liberation, all the freedom fighters in that part of the world, and he paid a high price for it. Mobutu was the bastion of all anti-African, was the headquarters of all anti-African elements, and elements that supported apartheid, sponsored by the West. South Africa was free to use Zaire to attack. He was the most important ally of the West. When he outlived his usefulness, Mobutu, that white people used to call Papa Mobutu, Wasabanga, and other titles, was buried by 4 people in Morocco. He was turned to a dictator. They brought in somebody they were fighting against in those days because he was a socialist or a revolutionary, and now they used him to get rid of some of their own allies. Why can't Africans learn lessons from that? If they can betray Mobutu, who served them so faithfully to the detriment of independence of Namibia and other countries, they one day got up and say, oh, he's a dictator and he must go. Not just recently they did it to somebody also, who used to be a good friend of mine.
Are you referring to Libya?
No, far from Libya. But I used to tell them, why don't we learn from what they did to the Shah of Iran? Shah of Iran, then Mobutu of Zaire, and then recently somebody of somewhere. And we Africans always go, why can't we worship God and instead of human beings? What? So these resources, today you can only blame African leaders for what is going on. How is it possible that Qatar, that started 98, Qatar was just almost like the Gambia. Today Qatar is, I used to tell the Emir of Qatar that I'll compete him because we are small countries. But I didn't know that there are such massive gas, and they are exploiting, we are not exploiting. But the good thing is that by the time we start, they would have exhausted their ideas, and then we will emerge as a new base. So, but my dear, the problem is these resources, we, the African leaders, deprive our people from benefiting from them. This is the problem. Because if they come and give you 5% and tell you how much the president is going to get annually, and you start saying, oh yeah, you'll be a wealthy person. Yes. It doesn't belong to the president, it belongs to the people of the Gambia. So I will not accept 10% on behalf of the Gambian people. What am I going to tell them? 10%, they take 90%. Because today, in the case of the oil, we know the cost per barrel. So now if you tell me that there are, let's say 1 billion barrels, the list, 1 billion barrels of oil, 1 billion barrels multiplied by $100 per barrel, you have $100 billion. And what you use to drill the well and whatever, all the capital expenditure is less than 2 billion. So why do you expect me to accept 10% or 5% when if it is 2 billion, you need maybe 5-6 years? Why would you want me to accept 5% for 35 years? Do you understand? So it is a choice. Unfortunately for most of us, when we want to be president, we talk about the people. We talk to the people. We say, oh, you are the people, you are this and that. Once becoming president, we say, oh, the West is God. If I don't please the West, I will not rule for a long time. It's God. And as long as Africans turn their backs on God and their own people, this status quo is going to continue, unfortunately. You have countries that are massively rich in mineral resources. On a daily basis, billions of dollars are being taken out of those countries.
How would the question of living in a so-called globalized world, where you would need to work with partners in the world in terms of bringing in investment to help develop the natural resources, for example, how does it work in terms of working with other nations, investors, and just creating the so-called climate of conducive climate of investment opportunities for business and development?
Well, living in a globalized village doesn't mean that Africans should be subjected to servitude or being subservient to whatever. We are the punch bag of every Western dog, and it's unacceptable. Now, being in the Western, in the global village doesn't mean also that all the rest are bad. I'm not saying that all companies are bad. We have to make choices. Unfortunately, we subjugate ourselves to other powers and worship them, so they tell us who we should work with. This is where independence is very important. Let us believe in God and work within the global village, work with people that have a conscience and have moral values, and they know that this wealth belongs to Africans. Many times you might have heard the saying, oh, in fact, mainland China gives to African dictators without regard to human rights violation.
I was going to come to that.
And then they turn around the corner, run to China and say, if you don't bail us out, our tails are on fire. They talk about human rights violation, and at the same time, and anti-communism, anti-socialism, at the same time, they are the biggest borrowers of Chinese wealth. They think the Africans are stupid, but because China, the advent of China, mainland China in Africa, gives the Africans the latitude to choose who they want to. This is a threat to their hegemony, and so anything to discredit mainland China, they will do so. And then go back to mainland China and say, oh, we want this and that and that. If you understand what I mean. So, we have a choice. It's not only the West that exists. You have the East also. You have Northeast, you have the Gulf states, Asia, you have Asia, emerging powers, you have the BRICS as well. So we have a choice. But what is more important is to work with whoever. Also from the West, there are people with a conscience. I'm not saying that all the West are vampires. There are people that have a conscience, and they have always been standing up for African interests, but there are very few. But let us take control of our countries, our resources, and then from there we will decide who we want to work with. It's like you have a herd of cattle. You have only one buyer in the village who is always fixing the price, take it or leave it. And then all of a sudden you realize that there are 5 others, not in the village but outside, who are saying, oh, I will come and negotiate the price with you. Okay, you say, oh, $10. I said, no. Why don't you reduce? I say, oh, no, but $10. I think that's the minimum I can accept. I say, okay. Because all the time they say, oh, but you're getting only $5. Now you're getting $10. Isn't that an improvement on you? Now, if the butcher is wealthier than the owner of the herd of cattle where he's buying the cattle from, then something is wrong. If you understand what I mean. When you look at other resources, agriculture for example, you look at cocoa or coffee. The companies that buy coffee from Africa, each of them is wealthier than all the African coffee producing countries put together. And they are buying their coffee and cocoa beans from Africa. And how much would it take you to, what does it take you to turn a bean into a coffee or whatever? It's just roasting. Anything else is just fake.